I've been a busy boy the last couple of days. I mentioned that I was traveling. I mentioned that I was doing some stuff. Basically, long story short, Ubisoft very generously offered to fly me and Jacob out to Los Angeles to the Lightstorm studio to tour the James Cameron private collection of artifacts from all of his movies, to try the game ourselves and to just get the download on all of Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. And it was pretty freaking insane. I do have some limitations on what I can and cannot share, so you'll have to bear with me as I'm kind of carefully showing some photos and not showing others, showing some videos and not others. But it really was fantastic. We met some great people. We had a great time. This was us, not last night, but the night before. Chris, Tori, everybody involved with this was amazing. We've got guys from Watch Mojo, people from the Canadian team at Ubisoft, Screen Rant founders, TikTokers, Andy Reloads, people from Spawnwave, tons of pretty awesome people to get to know and work with. And it really was just crazy. And like I said, we also got to tour the private collection of artifacts from James Cameron's movies that he's done throughout the years, including the original Terminator. They call it the hero model because this is the model that they used in the opening of Terminator 2. This is the exact thing that was on screen and on camera. They have the original models from the making of the Titanic film. So all of those exterior shots of the Titanic sailing through the ocean are this. It's this thing. This is it. Oh yeah, they had this, which is the original Oscar for Best Picture for Titanic that it won. You get an idea of the scale of the damn model here when we're standing next to it. It's massive. They have the sunken variation, so when you see the underwater sections, this is what they filmed. Back here you can see some models from the original creation of the Avatar film all the way back in the mid 2000s, or when these were made. They're just outside of camera range. Let me see if I have a more specific photo of that. Tons and tons of amazing artifacts and cool things. This is Jacob. They have a pair of boots that are the size of what the Na'vi would actually wear. And on a human, they're pretty funny. But they have all of the original clay sculptures for when they were trying to figure out what the Na'vi would look like. And this is a backpack that's used in the film. And these are costumes that Weta Workshop actually had designed and handmade to be able to use as reference for the 3D effects and stuff. The level of detail and care that went into those films is absolutely mind-boggling. You don't realize until they show you just how many little pieces go into creating a film like that, or in Titanic, all of those engine room scenes are filmed, with a couple of little exceptions, are all filmed using this model that they had in this little private collection. And you actually can turn the crank and it will rotate. Let me see if I got it on video. I'm not sure if I did. I don't think I did. But you turn this crank and it turns the pistons for the engine. And this is the engine room of the Titanic. They made a model of it to film it. And then they kind of layered in the footage of the workers and the people, working in the engine room. So tons of just amazing stuff. Oh yeah, they also had this, which was just freaking cool. This is from the Deep Sea Challenger. It's an actual part of the submarine that's been 11,000 meters under the ocean or something insane. It's just mad. They just casually have this sitting in the lobby of the space. And there were some other things we got to see and do that I can't talk about yet, but it was just a really, really incredible experience. And as part of it, I got to actually play the game and try it for myself. It was, by my understanding, the same preview demo basically that that like Joe Raptor and Mr. Matty Plays and those guys played a couple of weeks ago, but just a newer variation, so more polished. And overall, I was pleasantly surprised by it. We can talk, of course, with Joe Raptor about this on the podcast and everything, but I was actually pleasantly surprised by a lot of things I saw. I cannot put into words just how crazy detailed the world is when you're just like running through the forests of Pandora. The vegetation density, even when running at 60 frames, the post-processing effects, the interactivity. So like as you walk through the forest, almost every plant is like rotating towards you and changing color and moving and making sound. All of the sound is ray traced as well, so it sounds freakishly realistic while you're exploring. When you hear like a beast way off in the distance, like one of the coolest things, you can kind of get a sense for it here, like just the density of vegetation is wild. But I was shocked as like I was just exploring, kind of running around, and I heard like some tussling. I didn't think much of it. And then I saw a bunch of like bodies of these big elephant looking creatures, and they were just dead on like this beach. I was like, that's interesting. And I kept running around and I found more bodies, and I found more of these bodies stacked up and stacked up. And I kind of said to myself, I bet there's something doing this. And then there's like a big roar, and I turn around facing the forest, and the character starts to get like kind of shaken, so you can't use your focus ability because you can't focus, you're shaken up. So you have to try and just listen to figure out where this thing is, to avoid getting jumped. And it was a really cool dynamic event that happened just while exploring, to see something that happens and be like, I wonder if something is doing that. And then to find it and for it to kind of appear in a really organic way. Because it ended up being a big scary creature monster that was like a boss fight that was completely optional and that you just kind of wander into. So like that was really cool. I know Joe Raptor had mentioned that he didn't like some of the tedium when it came to interacting with things. So when you are like picking a fruit off of a tree, you can just press a button and it'll just yank the fruit off and it's fine. Kind of like in Red Dead, if you're going hunting, you can just use a shotgun, blast it, and then you get like a really crappy pelt, but you get some meat and it's fine. But if you want the best quality of meat, or in this case, fruit or whatever you're pulling and harvesting and stuff, then you have to like be very careful about it and angle the left stick properly, like feeling the haptics, and then holding down the, like on PlayStation 5, you have to hold down the trigger to a certain point to be able to trigger the perfect quality of harvested item. And I actually really liked it. It made it so it was not just the tedious, or rather not tedious, the mundane thing like in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you're just running around button mashing to collect stuff as you run through bushes and stuff, and there's no thought to it. I personally don't like when things are that mindless, when they're dumbed down to the point where you just are button mashing to just quickly collect something and move on. Or like, I think in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you can literally ride your horse over like a carcass of an animal and skin it, collect the meat without even having to get off of the horse. I don't personally like that stuff. I think that's already too dumbed down. But for some people, having a little bit higher requirements, making it so you have to carefully collect items in order to get the better items, for some people that's just too much and it's too tedious, and they don't like that. And I understand both sides of it. What I will say though is I actually liked gathering. I liked foraging. I thought that it having a little more effort involved made it less repetitive and less boring and monotonous, which is what I was personally most afraid of, was that it was going to be like, collect 3 of these plants and you just run up to them, tap triangle, and then go find the next one. It was actually like certain plants, if you want the premium, ultra, whatever, rare variant, or I think they call it pristine, if you want the pristine version of, say, this fruit that you're picking, You have to pick it at the right time of day. You have to pick it when the weather is right, because the dynamic weather system is just crazy. Storms blow in, and then it gets sunny, and then it's nighttime and it's cold and windy. You know, there's a lot more nuance to the system that people have not really considered or thought about. So I really like that. As for combat, the AI definitely is not anything to write home about. I thought it was fine. One of my concerns is that the difficulty was pretty varied. The first base I cleared was not related to the main story I was on, or the point of the main story we were in. So I just went, found a base or an outpost, kind of like the one that you see right here, and I cleared it myself, and it was very, very easy. But then, as part of the main story, I went to another outpost to clear it, and it was way more difficult. It was, you know, it actually required some effort and consideration to clear. So that was really cool. But I'm concerned that the difficulty is going to be all over the place. I hope that they are able to balance it a little bit more. Did the first person aspect bother you at all? Not at all. I mean, I think I understand some people don't like first person shooters, and that's okay. You were never going to like this. But no, it did not bother me at all. I mean, I think being upset over it being first person versus third person is silly. And frankly, I think first person, after playing it, I think first person was the right call. Just in terms of like scale of the Na'vi versus the humans to like everything else you're doing, I think third person would have been more disruptive than beneficial. Even down to like when you clear an outpost and you want to go in and like search for loot inside, like you have to crouch down to go through the doorways, because they're scaled for humans, and you're a Na'vi, you're 10 feet tall. So of course you have to crouch down. And little touches like that were really, really cool to see. In terms of bugs, I didn't really have any bugs at all. I had one graphical artifact when I was in a menu that was extremely minor. Basically, there was like, you know how sometimes there's like cosmetic items when you're trying to select it, and there's like a mannequin arm that is wearing that item of clothing, so you can see what it will look like on you. That mannequin arm would just like turn purple when it would stop moving if you use the right stick to make it stop moving. But kind of an afterthought. I didn't have any crashes. I didn't have anything I would consider a bug. There was pop-in a decent amount, but my understanding is this is a pretty old build, so that's not really surprising if it's from earlier this year. And then beyond that, like I even started to tune out the pop-in pretty quickly once I started playing, so it really did not seem like it was that big of a deal to the player at the end of the day, but still worth noting. As for other things, story-wise, honestly, we didn't get enough of a big sliver of the story to really say much about it. The section that I got to play, I mean, I will say the cutscenes I thought were very well acted. I thought that the performances were really solid. As for the actual writing in the story, though, I didn't see enough to really decide whether it was good or bad. What I will say is, after having, and again, I can talk about this more in probably a couple weeks. I don't remember exactly when, but whenever the embargo for all of this lifts, I can talk about it more. But from everything that I saw, at the very least, I can say that they are like, one of the biggest concerns for a lot of us was that this was just going to be a quick movie tie-in cash-in, right? That's what everybody is really worried about when they hear that there's a movie game that's coming. They're just terrified it's going to be another thing like that. That's not what this is. Like, and to anybody who thinks that this is just a quick cash in on the Avatar franchise brand, I will tell you right now, that is not what this is. That is not what this is. They have been working on this. I think they said the first pitch they made to James Cameron's team was 8 years ago. And soon after they started working on this, like this has been a long time coming. And part of the reason, to be fair, part of the reason it's taken so long for this game to see the light of day is because it has to go through Disney approvals. Like that's a huge part of it. And they were very transparent with that. They're like, there is not a single creature or location or anything in this game that like Lightstorm and Disney did not approve of. Every part of this game they have seen, they have signed off on, and that's why it's taken so long. Because if they're like, hey, we want to quickly add some new locations, you can't just do that. You have to go in and do all of this stuff. You know, it's everything has to be signed off on by 10 different people. Part of that means that it's really slow to get something like this put together. But on the other hand, it's also good because it means it's going to be true to the franchise. And they were also clear that this is considered canonical. Like everything that you're seeing in this game, they want to be able to pull into the movies, and they want to be able to refer to things that happen in this game in the films. And it's all part of the universe. It's not like this is some redheaded stepchild, you know, or black sheep of the family. This is part of the Avatar universe, and they were very, very clear about that, which was super cool. Yeah, haptic feedback was shockingly good. That was probably one of the most impressive things, is the haptic feedback on the controller was wild, like down to feeling the leaves and the brush as you run through it, to the rain falling. Like it felt like you could feel the rain falling on the controller. Like whatever magic wizardry they did to get the haptics working the way they have, it's absolutely crazy. Like even if you're playing this on PC, use a DualSense controller. It really is that good. It totally changes the experience. I will also say, like, most of the footage we've seen, like even this I'm looking at right now, highly compressed. The game in person looks ridiculous. So I will stand with Mr. Matty Plays on that one. Well, actually, I don't think he played it in person. But in person, playing it direct, not even like streamed, it's a gorgeous game. I guess we could mention like the in-game store and stuff. It looks to be pretty much approached the same way Valhalla was. So they have, for example, they're going to do lots of cosmetics, I'm sure, where it's like, hey, you want this Na'vi skin? It's $10 in the store, and it comes with a unique weapon or something. Like they're going to do stuff like that. It looks like they're probably going to have an in-game store similar to Valhalla, where like it has rotating weekly stuff. So I think that that's probably going to be there. What else? Fidelity or performance? They could not say anything specifically about like resolutions or about specific performance mode, quality, anything. Like naturally they're finalizing that stuff, so they didn't want to say anything one way or the other. It was also, no, I can't talk about that. I'll talk about that in the future. Yeah. There was something else really funny that happened, but I have to wait to talk about it. I will talk about it, I swear. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there in the future. What else was there of note? I mean, I guess just more broadly, my takeaway from all of this was that to me, it did not seem buggy. To me, it seemed, and you guys know, I am a bug magnet. If there's something buggy in a game, I seem to just find it magically. So I will say I did not have a broken or buggy experience. It seemed to run very well for me. And as for other elements, like, yeah, there's stuff to polish. Pop-in was probably the main thing I'm concerned about. But, you know, the map is crazy. They didn't say exactly. They didn't even know exactly how big the map was. But they said, you know, it's huge. It's huge. I think people have said that it was like larger than Valhalla, but smaller than Odyssey, which makes sense because Odyssey was mostly water. So that would make sense. And having played it, I mean, it is massive. It's a huge game. And it's not just huge in terms of, you know, X and Y. It's also on the Z axis or Z axis. It's also massive because, of course, you have your Banshee or Icaron, and you can just like fly straight up. And because it's on PS5 and Xbox Series and it's next gen or current gen exclusive, like the speed at which you can travel is crazy. You can go straight up like above the clouds. Like you can be in a storm, because there was like a rainstorm I was in. And if you want to hop on your Icaron, you can just fly straight up above the clouds and like get out of it, and you're above the storm. Like you can just fly right up above the storm. It's crazy. Like, when's the last time we had that? We're like, you're playing a game, there's a dynamic weather system, and then you can fly above the clouds and get out of the bad weather. Like, it was really, really cool. So overall, like, I think after playing it and seeing all of this and hearing a lot of details about it, it was really, really cool to see how much work and effort has gone into it. It's clear that this, just like Starfield, it's clear that this is not a quick cash grab, film licensed game like we got back in like 2010. This is a game that is built by a very, very passionate team that is not trying to phone this in. And honestly, like, boiling it down to, it's just Far Cry with Smurfs. While that's very funny, I think that is painfully reductive. And I would encourage you not to whittle it down just like that, because you might end up missing out on a game that actually looks like it'll have some really interesting stuff to offer, especially if you're a fan of the Avatar films. After playing this, I'm much, much more interested in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora than I was when I flew out there. And seeing the passion and the care and speaking to the team and stuff, it's been very clear to me that this is not just a quick cash grab. They are really, really working hard. And one of the most impressive things to me was also just the tech involved with it. Like I said, the density that they're using, the graphical fidelity, the speed at which they can stream data in and out. We've said for a long time, Star Wars Outlaws, which is being developed by the same studio, but a different team at the same studio. We've said that would probably be made or broken based on how Avatar comes together. And I will say, having played it, I'm now much more excited, even more so than I was before, for Star Wars Outlaws. It looks even better now because I know if they were able to get Avatar running like this, crazy amounts of high quality assets being streamed in so quickly, I think they actually could pull off everything they're trying to do for Star Wars Outlaws, and I'm here for it. So yeah, all told, we're going to remain skeptical, but this is one of those instances where it's a piece of evidence that we can point to and look at to inform our opinion moving forward. And at this point, having tried it and seen it myself, I am more impressed and I'm much more confident in their abilities than I was before. He took my thing.